If you go to the Crucible website, it talks about radical grace, and that's true. But there is also this radical understanding, empathy, intention, growth, grace, awareness, accountability, challenge, sharpening, passion, giving back, vulnerability, radical transparency, radical brokenness. It's all radical, and that's what really just blew my mind.
Welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. My name is Andy Spell, and I'm excited to have Jim Madsen with me this morning. Jim, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be here.
So, Jim, if you would, please tell me a little bit about yourself. What do we need to know so we get a baseline for who Jim is?
I'm a native Chicagoan. I live in the northwest suburbs of Chicagoland today. I am married to a beautiful, awesome, amazing wife named Rachel. And I have two boys. One is 12 and one is 8. They're in 6th grade and 3rd grade. Two very different boys. And I'm a stay-at-home dad. And really, every day is new. Every day is different. And they keep me on my toes, and it's good.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much. So I know that you did a Crucible Project initial weekend. When did you do your weekend?
Funny thing is, I did mine in the fall of 2019, and it was great. And it turned out to be the last one in person, right? Then COVID hit. And
Right.
So I was really fortunate to get in under the wire like that.
So what led you to going on your weekend?
I'd heard of the Crucible. I'd had a friend who'd been telling me about it for years. And one of my good friends from college, we were meeting for breakfast, met one morning and said, yeah, my therapist has recommended I go to something called the Crucible. And I'm like, the Crucible? My friend Casey talks about that all the time. And he's like, he has no idea what it is, but he had questions that he needed someone to answer for him ahead of time. And he wanted to know if I'd do it. I'm like, sure. I did the questions, he went on his thing, and then calls me when he gets back. And I'm like, oh, how was it? And he goes, you have to do it. I saw 28 men have 28 breakthroughs. He was just so on fire about it. There was one coming up in November, and I was like, I got nothing going on then. I'll just go, just for the adventure of it. I did no research on it. I just knew he was blown away by it, and I just went in blind. No expectations, really.
When you got there, what was it that you wanted for yourself, if you can remember that?
I wanted a lot of things, but I knew I wanted confidence and direction because I was so fractured and had identity issues over who I was and who I was supposed to be. And that's what I wanted going into it.
How did God show up? What did he do for you?
Wow. He showed up not only for me, but in the way he was impacting the other men there. Even though it's a unified experience, it's a very personalized experience. And it was a breakthrough in a new open line of communication, of connection, of conversation that I hadn't been able to tap previously. That was really good. And I saw it in so many different ways and so many different people. But for me, it just opened a new door to a new chapter, if you will, of life.
What has life been like since your weekend and that new chapter? What are some things you got and maybe continued work that you've done?
Prior to going into the Crucible, I didn't realize how unconsciously powerless I was and what I was doing to enable and perpetuate that. And a lot of this, of course, it goes back to childhood. I was bullied. People would turn on me. Remember when I was younger, at times feeling very lonely and crying. I had a lot of fist fights. So I ended up connecting with these characters that I'd see on TV and movies who had these transformations. I was weak. I was very weak. So, I loved seeing Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson slide down the bat poles and become Batman and Robin. I watched, there was a show, Shazam, Billy Batson yelling, Shazam. And then
Absolutely.
lightning, Luke Skywalker with his lightsaber. The whole David Banner, he's getting beat up, thrown into a car that is going to be smashed at the junkyard. Just everybody's ganging up on him. Then suddenly his eyes would turn white and he'd transform into this thing of power and take over the situation. Another one was Thor. In some ways, I feel like the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, did a disservice to that character because for me, I was a comic book reader. At the time, a big part of who Thor was that I connected with about him was the character Donald Blake. Donald Blake was his alter ego, and he was a smart guy, but he walked with a cane. And through his origin story, we see that one day his cane broke, he's in a cave, and he finds a stick, and he slams it on the wall, and he turns into Thor. Moving forward then, he's Donald Blake, and he walks with his cane, and anytime he needed it in that moment, he could get this transformation and be the power that he needed to be.
Right.
And a therapist friend of mine, I was telling about that. And he's like, yeah, you've learned to claim your power. And that really resonated with me at the time. Through the 2-year program I was in, I learned in my coaching, I was using a lot of victim language that I didn't even realize, I didn't even see. And when it was pointed out to me, like, wow, I really am doing that. I'm blaming things. I'm not owning what's mine. And that's been a big thing in Crucible, is owning what's mine. So it has transformed the way I show up and the way I approach life. And that's just one way. My language has changed. How I present myself to people and to situations, how I respond to situations. I used to respond very differently, and it's transformed the way I handle things in a much more aware way. I'm a dad, and because of the Crucible, I have seen how childhood wounds can really affect men for decades to come. Decades.
Right. Yeah.
I've seen in their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're still impacted by something that happened to them when they were 7 years old. And I see my boys differently now, and that really affects how I respond to them. If I had not done the program, I think I would be a very different person than I am right now. Crucible has made me a better man individually. It's made me a better father and a better husband. And I'm really grateful for that.
You talking about the different people that could get their power, and man, I'm Batman and Robin, all those, like, I resonated with that.
Yeah.
I even remember watching The Godfather and thinking, here I am, a Christian man. And I thought, dude, how great would that be if I could just say, hey, this person, I want them gone. They're bad. Go do my work for me. And I knew that wasn't the way to use power. And power is not going in and beating up somebody, but explain what getting your power back looks like for you now in that healthy way. Like, instead of being victim, what does power look like in a situation for you?
One question they ask during the initial weekend, a lot in the Crucible, is what kind of man, fill in the blank, what kind of man yells at his kids? What kind of man doesn't communicate with his team? That shifted my perspective, empowered me to realize I have the power to change things. I have the power to become the kind of man that I want to be. I ask that question of myself all the time. And I asked my current group to challenge me with that and keep saying that to me. If I don't follow through on a commitment, I want them to ask me what kind of man makes a commitment and doesn't follow through. It just really helps me going down that road to becoming the kind of man I want to be. And it's a never-going process. It's a journey that continues, but I've grown in ways that I would have never otherwise.
Why that accountability helps, I realize when I don't keep commitments with my group or something like that, it makes me go, man, how have I not kept my commitments with my wife, with my kids, with my church, with my work? It's a reminder that I'm working for that integrated integrity in every part of my life. And it takes work. And you're right, we'll never get there. We'll never be perfectly doing that, but we can grow in those areas.
Yeah, it's the integration. I like that word. There has been this great integration of approaches. I've been able to braid everything together to create change and to become the kind of man that God wants me to be and has intended me to be.
I think life is more complicated than we realize sometimes, and we can let life rule us, or we can let life take over for us, and we just kind of live it as it's coming at us, or we can step into our power, we can step into what God's given us, and we're doing life instead of life doing it to us.
It's the partnerships, the camaraderie, the support. We don't have to do it alone. My Crucible groups, they've given me the help I need from other men. I know what triggers me, either to be sad, angry, scared. And now I have people I can go to that I can say, hey, honestly, right now, I'm in a place where I've become vulnerable and weak. I've fallen into quicksand. I need help.
Yeah.
Back in the 70s, everything on the show, the worst thing that could happen was quicksand.
Yes.
And when we come into the quicksand of life, I'm able to reach out for that help and get that grasping hand, and people help pull me out. And we're on our own separate journeys, but our paths intersect. And they can say, hey, I've been here before. Let me help you with this. Let me give you a hand. And it's that camaraderie. It's that walking through life as a team on our own journeys, but helping each other.
So before your weekend, how did you feel about asking for help? And how do you feel about asking for help now?
Socially, I would never ask for help. I remember first grade, I'm in the classroom. I was leaning in my chair, as I always would, and I fell backwards on the floor. And I was kind of shocked by that. It was a big slam. All these people came over to help me up. And I just remember shaking them all off and saying, no, I don't want help. I got up myself. And I remember, wow, I refused any assistance. I think that character trait has gone with me in life. I always want to do things alone, independently, do it myself. And that can be good, but that can also be limiting, because we need people. None of us are all powerful all by ourselves. We're created to need each other. That's what I've learned to do, is to lean on and lean into my brothers, and they are there for me. They are there. And that's what I love. You know, if you go to the Crucible website, it talks about radical grace, and that's true. But there is also this radical understanding, empathy, intention, growth, grace, awareness, accountability, challenge, sharpening, passion, giving back, vulnerability, radical transparency, radical brokenness. It's all radical. And that's what really just blew my mind. I also remember too, after my first weekend, this was a big moment for me, is, you know, we're all standing there around the last meal, and they revealed to us everybody who was there to make the weekend happen. And they outnumbered us. I couldn't believe it. There was more people there who showed up to make this weekend happen, who had been through the program. And you could just feel the love and support for us. It was amazing. It was incredible. It's like, wow. I could see how much these men had been touched, and the emotion in their eyes. They weren't just there. You could see they were emotionally invested into us, giving back to us. It was so incredible. And that's what's made me want to go back too, because I've been wanting to pay it forward and be able to do that too. Man, at the end, it's so rewarding. It was all worth it.
Yeah. And I think when you talked about, you know, asking for help, I felt like nobody else asked for help. Like everybody else has got this figured out. And asking for help to me seemed like weakness. As a man, if I'm, 28, 30, 32, whatever age I was at, I should have the answers. I shouldn't have to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And that was part of my struggle. Man, I should have this all together. I should have this all figured out. And that made me feel weak or like I wasn't as smart as other people or whatever. So I think that was the fear of asking for help. So as you stepped into being a stay-at-home dad, what messages or what judgments, if you had any, did you have to fight to know that it's okay for you to do this and to step into that?
You know, in the beginning of the journey, long story short, I had lost my job, went back to school, got an MBA, and then COVID hit. Life changed just so quickly. Suddenly the kids are home, bought a house. It was crazy. And so it's during that time that I became a stay-at-home dad. But at the same time, I had this real feeling of inadequacy, that I wasn't as good as the other men around me who had all these full-time jobs. And I also had kind of one foot in and one foot out. Like, I'm going to look for a job here, but I want to be a dad. I was uncommitted to either side. And as a result, I was failing miserably on both sides because I wasn't giving either one my all. Through coaching and monthly conversations, it was a journey, but I got to a place where I was able to step into this role completely and embrace it. I went to my high school reunion a few months ago when they're all standing there with their suits and dresses on or whatever, you're having your drinks and everybody's talking. It's just like Romeo and Michelle, you know. I invented Post-its, I invented the floppy disk, whatever it is. And I remember standing around and I was saying, like, I'm a dad. I make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. That's what I do. It was cool because rather than get this look of what happened to you, I found it to be disarming. And people seem to appreciate my candor and honesty and the fact that I have embraced that. And it was so different from what everybody else was saying. One guy in particular who was super successful. I mean, I won't give away what his job is, but he does really well. He expressed to me that he was kind of jealous of me and that he wished he had that kind of relationship with his kids, and he didn't have that. And he wishes he could have what I had. And that was just really validating and letting me know that what I'm doing is important and it does matter, because it does. It really does. These years go by so fast and I'll never get them back again. And so I'm really grateful to my wife. Let me put out a big thank you to her, because this is all possible because of her. Thanks to the coaching, my wife, I've been able to step into this role and really embrace it and become who I think God has intended me to be.
So there may be some men out there who are thinking about doing this or want to do this and maybe have some of those messages or questions about who are they if they do this. Maybe they worry about it. What would you say is the benefit and what do you love about it?
What I love about it is it's such a unique opportunity that I get to spend important moments with my boys. I get to see them come off the bus. I get to have them unpack their stuff when they come home. And it's so counterintuitive because traditionally the man is the breadwinner when the wife stays home, and our tables are turned the other way. Neither of us expected to be in these roles, but we are. And I've learned this is an important job I'm doing. This is such an important role. And I am showing up every day to the best of my ability to do it the best that I can. And that might be just functional, driving them somewhere. It might be coming up with a creative solution to do something and help them learn something. Just last weekend, we have a pond near our house. We bought ice skates. I want my kids to know how to ice skate. And they are just looping me like you wouldn't believe. They took to it like a fish to water. Me, I am skating there like I'm 90 years old. I feel like I'm going fast, but I'm actually going so slow. But my wife was filming and it was great because I just love being able to be there in this moment to have that opportunity. I remember when I was working, I'd have to be out of town sometimes, or I'd be working really late and it would make me crabby, anxious. And I know that if I were doing that, I would not be able to be the dad that I am right now. So I've found that this is something that I am proud of, I love, and I'm grateful for it. And it's also presented opportunities to me that I never would have seen otherwise. And it's presented growth for me in ways that I would have never had otherwise.
I love that this is the call that you've got in your life and you're embracing it and allowing it to be what God's called you to do at this time. What a beautiful path.
And I'm not perfect at it yet. I'm improving every day. I mess up all the time, but I'm better than I was yesterday, and I'm going to be better at it tomorrow. And it's all part of my growth and part of my journey. I credit Crucible, what I've learned there, and the strength that God gives me. I can see him in every little detail of every day showing up. All of it together has conspired to help create me to become the man that I'm becoming.
And isn't that fun? It's hard work. It is hard work to become the men that God's created us to be. Yes, it seems daunting. Yes, it is hard. Yes, the weekends reveal things. All of that is true. And for some, it's not as hard as for others. It was hard for me to look back on the things where I'd come up short. But yet God has taken that and revealed to me that all of my life and everything that I had to work on and I went through has made me who I am today. And I'm very happy with who I am today. And that comes from Crucible letting us see that God has great grace for us and that he loves who we are. So, Jim, as we wrap up this time, thank you so much for what you've shared so far. Is there one thing that you would love to say to those who are listening to this podcast?
Maybe you've heard of Crucible before, you've had a friend who goes to it, or this is your first time hearing of it. It took me a long time, and boy, I regret not going sooner. I would say just go. Trust the process. You will learn so much about yourself, so much you never saw. You'll be faced with the question of what kind of person do you want to be? What kind of person are you? What kind of person have you been? That's just the tip of the iceberg, but it is going to start you on such an amazing journey of discovery, growth, camaraderie. There is no map. You'll figure it out as you go along. You will draw that map. And when you look back and see how far you've come, you will be so thankful and so grateful. It will make you a better father or mother. It will make you a better spouse. It will make you a better friend. It will make you a better everything. It won't happen overnight, but it will happen. Go.
Man, I love it. Jim, thanks so much. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate it. And look forward to maybe meeting you in person someday.
Yeah, that'd be great. Love it.
All right, man. God bless.
Thank you, man. Bye.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. Or if you're ready to get started on your transformational journey right now, you can connect with one of our Crucible certified coaches for a free 30-minute session at thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. That's thecrucibleproject.org/coaching. If you like what you heard, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening. And don't forget to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Thank you for listening.